Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to dive into something super powerful and also very simple. We're going to be building a production ready user authentication system without writing a single line of code. So we're going to leverage the incredible flexibility of n8n to build our backend using Airtable as a database or user database and leveraging JSON Web Tokens, JWTs for short, for secure modern authentication. This system would allow you to have people actually sign up to use your web flows, log in, and then use the tokens you get when they log in to authenticate the rest of your flows. All right, let's jump in, guys. So here's the flow, guys. The first section deals with the sign up. So this is the flow that takes in the user sign up request, so the name, the first name, the last name, the email, and the password they want to use to sign up. Once they're successfully signed up, they can log into your system and access your protected flows. So these flows could be something like get a user's personal information, update their personal information, initiate a transaction, or anything that you think should be protected or is user specific. So these particular flows need to be protected, and that's why you want to set up a sign up and a login flow. So I'm going to walk you through all of this. So let's get started with the sign up flow. So the first step is to actually set up the webhook. So what this does essentially receives the information for sign up. We're using an HTTP post request here instead of a GET request is because we don't want the password to be passed as a URL parameter, meaning it will be visible in the URL when this request is sent, and that's not safe. So when you use a post request, it's not visible in this URL request, in this URL when you send a request. So once we configure this and we receive the email address, username, password that the user wants to set up the account with, the first thing we need to do is check if that email is already in use. So basically check if that email is in the database. For this project, we're using Airtable. So I just set up a simple table here. We have email, first name, last name, the password in a protected format, and the date. So we will be actually checking this table to see if the email that the user is trying to set up already exists in a table. To do this, we basically run a quick filter on the search using a search parameter, search operation on the database. And whatever response we get, we filter by this email that the user submitted. And as long as there's one person with that email, you can't use it. So that's what this basically does. It checks if there's at least one person using the email you're trying to use. If this email exists in our database, then we already respond with email already in use, so you can't use. So let's test that out. So if we go here, the email that's in use is nanabrown@gmail.com. Let me copy that. Go back here. So I've already set this up in Postman so we can quickly see how it works. So I'm going to send this here and I'm going to test this flow. Go to Postman and then run my request. And as you can see here, email is already in use and it's following the right path. So what happens if the email isn't in the database? So what it does next is actually takes the password that was sent by the user, so password 123 as you saw from the request, hashes this, basically converts it into a secure format in base64, and then stores it in the database along with the other user information, first name, last name, email, etc., and the date the account was created. And then it responds to the user with a sign up successful message. So let's test that out. Let's use a different email. Let's just add 24 to this and then test this workflow. Success. So if we go now to the database, you see here an around 24 and then the password in a secure format and the date. So that's basically all the sign up flow does. It checks if the email already exists or if the user already exists in the database. If it does, it tells you cannot use that email address. If the user does not exist, then it says, okay, let me store your information in my database. And to protect the password, it hashes it, basically uses a cryptographic algorithm to change the password into a different format so no one can know what it is, puts it into the database, and then tells you you're successfully signed up. All right, so now we're going to we're going to check the user login flow. We just finished up with the sign up flow that showed us how to actually put the user's information into the database securely, storing the password and making sure that we can retrieve it. So the sign in flow actually checks a user's sign up details against the information we have in the database to ensure that it's the right person trying to access the account. So this webhook essentially takes the information from the user, checks if the user exists in the database. It does that by essentially using a search operation and then filtering for that specific email. If the user does not exist, it just sends wrong email submitted. So you don't exist or you just put in the wrong email. We use wrong email just to be sure. Maybe they just got the email wrong. And however, if the user does exist, we take the password they submitted, use the same hashing algorithm to convert it, and then check if the hash password stored in the database and the hash password that has been submitted correspond or are the same. If they correspond, then you have a successful login, and then we return a JWT token that you can use to access the protected flows. However, if the passwords don't match, then we respond with the wrong password submitted response. So let's test this out. Let me take this URL, test this flow, come to this. I've already set up a username here that we know is not in the database and send this request. And as we can see, wrong email. If we go into the flow, we see the flow path and it ended with a response that says you submitted the wrong email. Now, what if we submitted the right email or an email in the database but the wrong password? So you actually don't know what the password is, but at least we know what the email is. So let's copy this and then go here. So let's say put this here, and then we add a 45 to this. And then we come to test this and send this request. Wrong password. So as expected, it was able to identify that the user does exist in the database, but the password was wrong. So that was the response we got. Now let's say we got all the details right. What happens? We take this off, test the workflow, and submit. And here is the JWT token that we are going to use to access the protected flows. So let me take a few seconds and go back to this JWT token. So what essentially it is a token that is essentially packaged or packed with some user information. So when you are creating your JWT token, you have to set up some credentials, but you can actually determine the payload that the token holds. And for this particular token, once we are sure that the user exists, we are able to pass the user ID and the email address and put it within the token. Now, what this means is whenever you try to log in, we will check the token, we will decode the token and then get this ID and email so we know who we are dealing with. So if I logged into this account, the JWT, the token I will get will be different from if anyone else logged into this account based on their user information. And if I try to access any protected flow like a read, check my account details, check when I was created, delete, update, it would know who exactly is trying to access this protected route and then act on their specific account. So that's pretty much it for the login flow. Now that the user has been able to log in and they have a token, they can access the protected routes. What does this look like? So for the protected flows, I only did two sample ones. The one to get the user details, get the current details, and then one to actually update the details. So we're going to run with this first. Let me get this test URL. Let's see. So get user. Okay, put the test URL there, and this particular URL doesn't require any parameters because we're just getting the user information. But you do need to set the authentication, which is a bearer token, and that will be the token that we got here. So once I copy this token, put that here, send this request. I haven't actually told it to wait, so I have to click test. Come back here and then send this request again. Perfect. So here we're able to see the information of the user, Man Brown. And if we come here, it matches Man Brown and the date. All right, so we've seen how the get user protected route gets. So let's say we got this token wrong. Let me just show it and then take out 2 characters and then send the request again. Oh, I keep forgetting to run this. And then send the request again. Invalid signature. So even if you get one value off, you will not be able to access it. So you can't just make this up. It has to be generated by the system. All right, let's try and update this. That's not gonna work. Just stop this. All right, so the last one would be to request a user update. And for that, you can just come back here, copy this token, update user. And if I wanted to, in the body, change the name from man to many, I just have to put in the parameters I want to change. Go into token, put in the right token, make sure that it's listening for the request, and then send. And if I go here, we see that the first name has changed. So that's it, guys. That's basically the system, and that's how you set up user authentication service for your application using n8n, JWT authentication, and Airtable.